All right, welcome to the upgrade. I've got a little bit of an explanation here because when Len and I wanted to start doing this podcast, and of course Len is here with me. When we wanted to start doing this podcast, we wanted to have fun, wanted to talk about all kinds of fun shit, and like occasionally get a little serious, get into a little politics or this and that. Unfortunately, timing is a bitch because it is June 1st, and today, the last week, shit has just been going wild everywhere.
Legit shit the bed over the course of a week.
The entire United States has just gone completely fucking bonkers, and it all started with a poor man named George Floyd who ended up laying on the ground with a cop digging his knee into the dude's throat and basically killed him on camera. And over the past week, there's been all kinds of protests that has led to riots and looting all over the fucking United States. And this orange fuck that's in the White House is just basically pouring used cans of gasoline onto this fucking fire.
He's not even using gasoline anymore. It's pure napalm. Yeah, I mean, he's gone ballistic.
You know, like I used to joke around about Bill de Blasio, who's the mayor of New York City, and I used to joke around and say, you know, he's managed to find ways to make everybody hate him, but like he's rookie level compared to Trump. Like Trump has managed to.
It's not even the same realm.
And we're at the point here, like I said, because we started this podcast and we're kind of been trying to keep a few episodes in the can as we get everything on the back end together to eventually go live and have a Facebook page and get people's input and try to, you know, just make it more like a back and forth thing and have fun with it. But we always plan to eventually get into some of this stuff because we both, obviously off the air, we talk politics a lot and we've done that for years. And we've seen so much of this shit that's coming. We've seen it a year or two ahead of time. And, you know, one of the reasons why we're such good friends is because we're in sync on a lot of this shit.
Yep, and that was going to be my warning, is that we are not going to have very many opposing views. Maybe different circumstance around view, but we still are generally on the same trajectory in the course of understanding where the fuck we are right now.
Well, you know, let's do this right now because this is obviously just audio, so people aren't necessarily going to know this unless they know us personally. Like, I am Hispanic. Both my parents were born in Puerto Rico, but if you see me, you probably think I'm Italian. A lot of people do. Len is a black male, which at this point is an endangered species in the United States.
And add on, 6'2", 6'3", not a small man by any stretch of the imagination. So just my presence in places can be seen as a threat. Just showing up.
Very scary.
But if you know me, I'm not scary. I'm just a guy. I'm a regular guy, and I'm not here for the bullshit, but I'm also not here to cause bullshit.
Well, that's another, you know, we obviously have different backgrounds, different things, but one of the reasons why we get along is because we're generally both laid back dudes. But we're also not entertaining a lot of that bullshit in one way or another. And it doesn't show up very often, but there have been times. And, but, I mean, just to go back to this thing, it's like, I mean, just the events that have happened today just blow my fucking mind, because here I am, and what did I say on Facebook? I said, okay, Trump's going to speak any minute now. How much gasoline is he going to pour onto this fucking fire? Because every time the dude opens his mouth, it just turns into more and more shit because he's such an asshole. And it's okay if you're an asshole and you're getting things done, but everything with him is just blaming other people for shit and complaining about Obama and this and that. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Obama's been out of office how many years now?
Almost 4 full years. Well, it's been 3 full years.
Yeah. And if you look at all the stuff that's gone on, I mean, Trump gets mad when they fact check him. Meanwhile, the dude has had so many things come out of his mouth that have been proven untrue.
So,
Jeez.
Andy.
Yo.
What's up?
Just watching the chaos.
I need you to meet Gary. This is Gary. We call him Gary Muttley. Andy Lavine. I've known Andy for 40 years. We grew up together. We went to preschool, not at elementary, but then some of high school. And we spent pretty much every summer together until we were about, 26. So if there's anybody on the planet that knows me well, it is this guy.
Nice.
So we were in the middle of just talking about the chaos. Gary, please continue with what you were saying.
So, where was I?
You were talking about the Cheeto tossing all the fire on the, tossing all the gas on the flames.
So no matter what this guy says, he always manages to say something that's going to start more fucking problems. And it's one thing when you're dealing with small shit, but now, I mean, you know, a bunch of cities in this country have been on fire for a fucking week, practically. And like, this guy is silent half the time because, listen, he's posting on Twitter 1,000 times a day, every day. And then all of a sudden when shit starts getting really deep, I guess he's got no Twitter in his bunker because all of a sudden you only get a handful of tweets instead of the usual fucking storm. And then, you know, today it's like, okay, he's going to come out and talk, and it's just complete fucking chaos. And I'm just like, and I said on Facebook before it started, I said, well, how much gasoline is this asshole going to put on the fire? And sure enough, comes out, mentions George Floyd once, and then goes on and on about fucking violence and protesters and Antifa, which doesn't even make any fucking sense. And like, everybody just is getting more pissed off, and like you can hear the CNN people just like hitting the level that like I'm at, which is like Lewis Black level, like top of your head is gonna pop off fucking anger. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Because probably much like me, they've seen this shit all coming.
I mean, it's been laid out for years. Another friend of mine, Tony, we were having conversations, and I'm going to put it at 2015. And I was like, bro, this shitstorm is coming. I can see it now. It was just when Trump jumped in the race. I was like, if this motherfucker wins, we're doomed. 100% doomed. It is going to get wild, and we are never going to recover from it in our lifetime. And he's like telling me, hey, you're crazy. That's definitely not a possibility. You're overblowing it. It won't be that bad. And I'm like, no, bro, it's gonna be bad. And immediately, as soon as he won, I was like, get ready. Get fucking ready. And, you know, as the years go by, I keep pointing out every time it gets exponentially worse that I was fucking right.
Right.
And just the other day, we were just talking about it, and I was like, I wish you had listened to me then, because I wouldn't have to say this now. So,
I mean, yeah. all those seeds were planted back then, because you and I talked about this back then, and that whole episode in itself was ridiculous because they basically helped Trump win. Like, you had Hillary that a lot of people hated. She went through and just tried to bully Bernie out of the whole thing when Bernie had a lot of support, and then had the balls to think that Bernie's people were just going to be like, okay, we'll jump in with her. and they were like, yeah, nah, we're not doing that. We're just not going to vote because you people are fixing the fucking thing anyway, because they fixed all the Democratic primaries.
And that doesn't necessarily, like, I was going to vote for Bernie if they put Bernie in there. Like, I support the general ideas of what he had to say. I don't necessarily agree with everybody on on anything.
Of course.
But overall, I was fine with that. Truth be told, I did vote for Hillary because I'm not going to vote for Trump. But I knew that I'm in New Jersey and it was generally meaningless. But don't piss on my shoe and tell me it's raining. I know that she's a piece of shit. We're kind of in that same position right now, but I think it might even be technically worse. Because now you're telling me...
I think it is worse.
You got a rapist racist versus a pedophile-ish rapey racist.
Right.
And I mean, they're both bad. Neither one of them are... You're telling me of the 380 million people in the U.S., these are our two best candidate choices.
Well, but see, here's another thing. First of all, yeah, you've got a rapey racist versus a rapey racist. And as much as I absolutely despise Hillary Clinton, at least she could form a complete fucking sentence and not get lost.
Exactly.
Like Biden's like, pancakes. Like, what the fuck? And no, he's fucking lost. And I mean, this is the whole thing, because with this virus now, it's like, who knows? I had always said that this whole election cycle was just going to be a complete fucking insane shit show, because you put the two of them in a debate. Trump is an asshole, but he's not stupid. Like, he may be seriously mentally ill, but he's got intelligence. So he would just go and Zorro the fuck out of Joe Biden.
Yeah, I hope
and just slice him up.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what, and then here's the other thing. Well, that's where we're at. And here's the other thing that kills me, because I am not a fan of Andrew Cuomo. I have never been a fan, because he's been involved in a lot of shit in New York, a lot of political shit between New York City and New York State that has made me not like him. However, you watch him talk, even today when he called into CNN, like, he's talking, and you hear him talk, and he's intelligent, and he knows how to talk, and he's got quick answers, and he's not a used car salesman like this orange dickhead that he's like, yeah, we got great tests. You know, they're the best tests in the world. Like, he's trying to sell you a used car. So Cuomo, you hear him talk and you hear him sound intelligent and be informative. As much as he might be a dick with certain things, like, you got guys like that, and then you're going to give me Joe Biden, who's like, looks like he's going to fall asleep at the fucking microphone one of these days?
Yeah, no thank you.
Like, are you kidding me?
So, like, Andy, where do you stand on this?
Well, let me split the difference from your original point about our descent into chaos and that this is lost. I don't think it's lost completely, because this constitutional republic has held for 200 plus years. I think we are in the middle of a horrendous patch, and I think Donald Trump needs to be purged from our issue world constant. He just needs to go. He will not go without a fight. He will not go quietly if and when he's removed legally. So that's the next level of constitutional crisis we're going to have come January, when he loses to Biden. I'm no friend of Joe Biden. I am no fan of Joe Biden. I think he's on the weaker end of candidates. I think politically he's where most liberal Democrats need him to be as far as policy. Does he convey it better than like a sixth grader? No. Is he clearly not the guy he was 15 years ago when he was in the Senate? Yeah, he's declined, but you have one psychopath who's trying to burn this shit down, and then you have Joe Biden, who, at least I understand, comes from a better place. Again, like 4 years ago when it was time to vote for Hillary Clinton, again, Hillary Clinton was a piece of trash. I didn't like her. I didn't like her entitled smugness that she thought it was hers to have. But I went into, like I said to everybody, I went into the voting booth. I held my nose, even though in New Jersey it doesn't matter. Pulled the lever for Hillary Clinton because it was the only reasonable choice that I can look my kids in the eye and say, I have to do this because the other guy is not an option, and not voting is worse because that's just basically just saying, you know, I've given up on the system.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was when I walked in to the booth. Was just like, I can't willfully not vote, and I can't willfully vote for Trump. And voting third party, while it sounds cool and all, it's generally a waste of time because I don't know enough about those people because I haven't done enough research.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to know about people. You just have to know about the electoral college, and they just physically don't have a mathematical path.
They won't win.
It could be the greatest thing. It could be the greatest candidate. It could be Andrew Cuomo. It could be, you know, the Pope himself, whoever you love. They can't win in our system. It doesn't matter who they are.
It's not set up for them to win.
Right. It's like throwing the vote away. It's just like not voting. Unfortunately, as much as, you know, we don't have a system. You know, our electoral college system is rigged for the two-party system. So you need to have the backing of one of those two parties. If you don't, then you can't be on enough ballots. You can't generate enough electoral college votes. So, like I said, it's just basically like throwing your vote away.
Yeah, and one of the problems that I had back then was that I think Bernie had enough support that he could have changed that whole game if he had ended up saying screw you to the Democrats and ran as an independent. And I don't necessarily think that he would have won, but I think he would have set the stage for this election and maybe not won this election, but he certainly, especially with all this stuff, the way things have gone now, he would have had a much better chance, and it would have changed that whole idea of throwing away your vote, because I think the Electoral College would have been kind of forced into something because the disparity would be so great that
I think Bernie Sanders could have gotten 35% of the vote in 2016.
Right.
He would have gotten 0 electoral college votes, and he would have siphoned away enough votes from Hillary Clinton, which ended up happening anyway, basically splitting the liberal vote, and then you're basically handing a vote to, you know, someone who doesn't have the plurality, which is what happened with Trump anyway, as he very delicately threaded the needle, thanks to, you know, a couple people over in Pennsylvania who, you know, clearly just, I wonder what the fuck's going on over there. But
what the fuck's going on over there is that there are 3 sections of Pennsylvania that are blue, and then the rest of the state is Pennsylvania.
Right.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You got Pittsburgh, you got Philadelphia, and you got Harrisburg, and that's it. Everybody else is generally red. So if you can't get enough people from those 3 sections, you're fucked.
Yeah, and that was the Hillary Clinton apathy.
Yep.
It was uninspiring to some, repulsive to others, and just gross to the rest of us. And it was like, well, you know, and I think that's a lot of that's happening with Joe Biden, is that he doesn't excite anybody. You know, you could take his policies and brand him with Andrew Cuomo or somebody else interesting, Bernie Sanders. You have something to work with. You have something malleable as far as, you know, a candidate. But in general, Joe Biden inspires, you know, no one. Like, no one is burning down the door to get to vote for Joe Biden. Like, it's like when Obama was running, there was something there. There was a groundswell. There was a movement. It was historic. He was a dynamic speaker. He had a certain moxie and swagger about him. And Biden is like, I don't like to use Trump's words, but, you know, he calls him Sleepy Joe. Well, yeah, okay. Like I said, is he going to die? What's the deal? Like, he has no punch in his step. Like I said, he's saying the right things. He's sequestering himself like he's supposed to. He's wearing a mask. He's acting like an adult in the room, but nobody gives a shit. That's not enough.
No, because he doesn't really do much of anything. And listen, Trump is full of shit about a lot of things, but one of the things with Trump is that every now and again he'll hit the right spots, because he used to call her Crooked Hillary, and with a lot of stuff that came out, it was like, you know what, he's not wrong.
Nope.
And with Joe Biden, it's like calls him Sleepy Joe. It's like, yeah, he's not wrong. Because I think the whole thing with Trump getting elected in the first place was a combination of Hillary doing a whole lot of toxic shit and Trump appealing to a whole different area of America and basically selling them a bill of goods. And they were so desperate that they just ate it right up, because he talked about bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States. Has that happened? No.
Will it?
No.
No, it's not going to happen. No. because as long as you've got all your politicians in bed with their corporate buddies, they're never going to put manufacturing jobs here, because it would cut into their profits. The reason why they make the shit overseas is because they could do it for pennies. So it would upset that whole structure.
And it also saves them on taxes.
Well, yeah, but that's all. Well, that all factors into it. It's like they do it for pennies. They save on the taxes. Your overall costs are so much less when you make shit in China or wherever the fuck. But that goes for all the other jobs too. Because how many jobs have we farmed out to India over the years, or some of these other countries? You call like HP customer service or something in like, or Amazon or whatever. You're talking to somebody in fucking India, or overseas, and
they've got another work source. They can get you can get a mouse pad made in China for 20 cents. Whereas you can't pay somebody $18, some union guy eating $20 an hour in Pennsylvania to make it, because a mouse pad would cost $80, and nobody wants that.
Right.
With tech support, they found some guy in Bangladesh or India that they can pay $3 an hour and provide you the tech support and pay the overseas phone bills, and you're still and like I said, you're not going to have somebody in a call center in the United States and pay them $18 an hour. So, do you blame the corporations for saving money?
Well, but that's the whole thing. It's the corporations, and it's a combination of the corporations and just deregulation over time. But here's Trump selling all these people on a bill of goods, and it's like he's telling them he's going to bring manufacturing jobs here. And listen, Pennsylvania, you got steel towns that like the steel mills closed, and like it's just desolation.
Well, I mean, like, Trenton. Me and Andy are basically from Trenton. We had an iron mill here. My dad worked in the iron mill, and that shit closed down, and he had to find something else to do. Right. And you can't bring that job back. It's gone.
But that's what he pitched to some of these places, and like in Trenton, you could still find something else around. Like some of these other places, they're in the middle of nowhere. Yep. There's nothing else. Yeah, so it's just complete desolation. So here he is. It's like he goes to a bunch of hungry people, waving a couple of hamburgers around. It's like, of course they're going to bite.
People were desperate, and they appealed to that populist message. And look, if you didn't realize the night of the election that everybody got sold a bill of goods, you certainly know it now, because he is intellectually, emotionally, and psychologically incapable of doing the job. He's just an empty husk. Like, he's got nothing. If he's not screaming and yelling and complaining about God knows what, he is dead in the water. That's why you haven't heard from him in 2 days, because he's got nothing to say. He has no answer for this.
Right.
He has no answer for the pandemic. He botched that months ago. He has no answer for the
botched that from the start.
Well, his answer is that it's the Democrats' fault and it's Obama's fault. But meanwhile, he is the one that dismantled the whole pandemic team they had.
It's Obama.
If you run in a restaurant and I take it over, 3 years later we run out of pots and pans and plates, is it your fault or is it my fault?
In Trump's world, but that's always the case, because you look at this thing now that's going on now, and he's blaming everybody else. He's blaming the looters. He's blaming the looters, but he barely talks about, Like, did he ever talk about what happened with the cops?
No.
No.
Meanwhile, the medical examiner report comes in today, and they classified it a homicide. Did he mention that? No.
Nope.
No.
But they're going to twist that, man, because I read that report, and
I know there's issues with it.
There's issues with it. Now, my problem is going to be all these people who start victim blaming because he had substances in his body, but then the same people that are complaining that drug abuse is it's now considered a health crisis, but only if it's their kids.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
of course.
It's like you can't have it both fucking sides of the coin.
You don't need to have both sides of the coin. We don't need to be talking about any of this shit.
They held the man down.
What I saw with my own two eyes on that videotape with a cop with his knee on his neck for 10 minutes, it's murder. And regardless of what he had in his system, they had every opportunity to pick him up, put him in the back of the police car, put him in the back of the paddy wagon, whatever they needed to do with him, sit him up against the wall like he was before. But, they could have taken him into custody and done whatever investigations they needed on the scene or asked any questions of any bystanders or bylookers or whatever the hell these people were. But instead, they chose to squeeze the life out of this guy on the ground
for nearly 9 minutes.
With just not effective policing, period, policy, procedural, structural, and then this guy's dead. And like I said, it doesn't matter what he had in his system. It doesn't matter what his prior record was. It doesn't matter whether he was trying to pass a fake 20. It doesn't matter what he was doing. Police take people into custody all the time, and either they didn't want to, they didn't care, they were trying to make a point, they're just rogue cops. I don't know, but all you needed to say to see those 9 minutes. You don't need to. I don't need to see the autopsy. I know what it says. I read it, but again, that's murder by cop right in the street. That's like Len, like you would say, like just living while black.
Yes, 100%.
Was that his crime?
Well, it's funny too because you mentioned it. Let's be clear about this thing because a lot of people still don't know this. This whole thing was because they called the cops because they thought he was trying to pass a fake 20. Because this is part of the reason for a lot of the anger that's going on. Because all of this bullshit is over a fucking what they thought was a fake 20.
Yep. All right, come on.
Die.
Exactly. It's a $20 bill. I don't care if it was a $100 bill. Like, there is no amount of money
I'll give you a $20 bill.
What'd you say?
I'll give you a $20 bill. Here. Let this man live.
Exactly.
But that's what I mean. It's like we've gone to this level, and listen, these fights have been going on for a long time when it comes to the drug thing because it's like, okay, we're putting people in jail for this much marijuana, but here we go again. It's like the same old shit, and this is why, if I fucked with you over and over and over for 30 plus years, I mean, it'd be amazing if it took 30 years, but if I fucked with you over and over and over for long enough, you're gonna fucking explode.
Right. So, all right, let's be clear about some timelines. The first African slaves showed up here in 1600s. It is 2020. They passed the civil rights, so at that point, black people actually had the right to even exist here in America 12 years before I was born. 12 years. That means that my mother was 14. My father was 30 before he had the right to actually be a full living, breathing entity and have the rights to exist here. It hasn't been that fucking long. 50 years. The idea that the cops that exist now are still operating under the same structure that existed back then is not conjecture.
No, it's no surprise.
It's learned behavior passed down for years and years and years. And until you break that cycle, it will continue. There's no way around that. Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, bands that all three of us have listened to for the last 30 plus years, talking about the same shit back then, and it's just as relevant now.
That is one of the things that blows my mind, because I look at everything when it through the scope of music. So it's like you look at all these things that have happened, all these different incidents, and like, okay, Downset talking about the LA riots, and like Rage Against the Machine and Public Enemy, and like, listen, I was having a discussion. Well, I was having a discussion this week because my own band did a song about the Amadou Diallo incident. And it's like, here we are, how many years later, and all of a sudden, like, nothing's changed. Like, we're still doing the same shit. And it's crazy. Yeah, and it's crazy because you look at that mural that they put up at the spot where Floyd was killed, and in the background around his head, there's a black space, and in it they put the names of all these other people that have been involved in similar incidents. And it's just like, what the fuck already? Like, how can we just keep doing this shit and like not learn at all from it?
Because the power structure doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's not us as the people. I would argue that 60% of the people at this point truly care.
More.
Maybe it's 70%, but there is still a certain section of our society that just doesn't give a fuck, and they're the ones that have money.
Racist.
They're the ones. Yeah, they're the ones that have the money. They're the ones that have the power, and they have the power because of that structure.
Also, what you see one of these incidents, and like I said, whether it's right now, whether it's Trayvon Martin, whether it's Amadou Diallo, whether it's Rodney King, you see this period of unrest, and people are really pissed off, and we're going to do something about it. And then in a week or 7 days or 10 days or 2 weeks, everybody goes back to their normal lives, and the whole paradigm resets. So until this is capitalized on and moved forward through the political system, it's just going to die on the vine again. No matter how many people march, no matter how many cities have peaceful protests, no matter how much goes on, or how many people talk, it's cheap as hell. If we look back on this in 2 weeks and everybody's back to their normal lives, this is just going to be another name, another murder by cop. And we sit and we wait until it happens again, and then the cycle repeats.
I think the difference is that people have been seeing over the course of, we're going to call it the last 5 years, which coincides with the true proliferation of cameras and people going live, people recording on the spot, thinking that to document this shit that's going on, is lending credence to the age-old tale that everybody has heard about police violence, about violence against minorities. I'm not even just going to say black people, because it really doesn't matter if you're brown of any sort. Andy, being a Jewish man, you know that there is violence against Jewish people for just no reason at all at times. It doesn't matter if you are against the structure in any way, you are a fucking target.
Just like we were talking about, anti-Semitism is laced in American society and post-European society, just like anything else. I have a last name that I cannot escape. If you see it on a resume, or you see it on a job application, or you see it on my driver's license, immediately to a certain sector of the population, that tells you something, yet nothing about me, but it still is a label.
It's basically you're leading them down the path that they want to go mentally. See, I get away with it with my name being almost Irish sounding, because nobody knows exactly what to expect. You talk to me on the phone and you still don't know who you're talking to. And then I show up in your interview and sometimes I can see it.
Yep.
Pure surprise. You're not the guy that I was expecting to walk in here.
So then prior, all their bias couldn't be exposed. And now you're sitting in front of them, and now you got them in the moment, and now you can see the color drain out of their eye.
Yep.
As you know, you're going to go through the motions for the next 20 minutes or half an hour, and you're never going to get a call back.
Hundreds of never called backs over the years.
Yep.
I mean,
unbelievable.
Except you know, if you can identify via the name, the voice, or whatever, then you're culled from the list, and you don't even get that call.
You don't get exactly. You don't even get the call. See, like Gary, you probably don't have that problem with your name of an immediate no.
Right. Because my last name is kind of, is kind of vague. If anything, it's short, but it's got Greek roots, so people can't really read it. But,
right.
But then my looks also, people can't really read it either, so I don't really run into that problem as much.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
You're lucky. But what I was going to go to is the fact that I don't think that this current situation is specifically George Floyd. He's the straw.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny you say that, because that was exactly the thought that I had.
Because you have to take into account that let's just take it back to the Dallas riots 2.5 years ago, where the cop broke into the guy's house, walked into his house and shot him on his couch.
Yes.
And basically she got away scot-free. I mean, I think she might have served a little bit of time, but it was a really pitiful sentence for such an egregious bullshit crime.
Absolutely.
And there have been a number of incidents captured in social media, not the media, but social media, that have pointed out time and time again that there is a bias against minority men in this country, most specifically black men, but it doesn't stop there. So then you got to pull it forward. We got Corona. Everybody's stuck in the house for the last 6, 8, 10 weeks. And add on to that people of color are still getting murdered in the street. You got Ahmaud Arbery. You got the no-knock warrant at that house, and the girl gets blown away.
Yeah, she was an EMT.
Right.
Which means, on top of all that, there she is on the front lines dealing with all this COVID shit. She comes home, wants a piece of quiet, and then they bust her fucking door in and end up killing her.
Yeah, well, they bust her door in. Her boyfriend starts shooting because they no-knocked warrant, didn't announce that they're the police, and what the fuck else are you going to do but shoot back if somebody busts in your house and you have a registered gun? You are a registered gun owner in your own home, defending you're standing your ground.
And it was the wrong house, right?
And it's the wrong house.
Wrong house.
You didn't even do your research, and you went to the wrong house. So you got that. And then you got George Floyd, and then all the myriad of other things that we've all been witness to over the last 5 to 10 years in social media. What the fuck did you think was going to happen?
Well, let's also add to that foul soup right there. Let's also add just the general divide that's been building in this country the past couple of years. since Trump took office.
Oh, God.
Because like every little thing, it's like I said, he fuels the fire every time, no matter what it is. And he always says something that just ends up getting more people tight. So it's like you add all of that, then you add the COVID situation, and then of course he puts his 2 cents in there too, because there it is, the federal government lays out a guideline, and then there he is trying to egg people on to go break the fucking guidelines and talking about liberate Michigan, liberate this. It's like, liberate them from what? You're the one that came up with the fucking plan. Liberate them from. So it's like, and that's why I say now he's talking about Antifa and anarchists and this and that. Like, Trump is the ultimate anarchist, because he just the way he does things and the way he's changing things and this and that, like, he just wants to cause chaos. You watch him and it's just obvious, the things that he does, the things that he says, like, he's just trying to rile people up, separate people, divide people, and then have them just going at each other and cause total chaos.
We are a cat chasing a laser pointer as he drags us all over the goddamn room.
Right.
Keep our eyes off of what the fuck is really going on. And we can't even stay focused, because under normal circumstances, we would be able to at least keep our eyes on what the president is doing. But with all this other things that are happening, whether it's COVID or whatever, I mean, people are cooped up in their houses. And you know what? To some people, this shit is scary. People are dying.
Right.
People don't. There's a complete vacuum of information coming from the federal government, and when you get information, then Trump contradicts him the next minute.
Immediately.
Right. Dr. Fauci comes out, he says a bunch of shit. This is what we're going to do, yada yada. This is how you keep yourself safe. And then this asshole comes out 2 seconds later. He's not wearing a fucking mask. He's standing 2 feet in somebody's face, and it's like, well, who are you? Are you just a child? What is the problem here? Like, no one is on the same page. We're getting no leadership from the federal government, and it's just a complete abdication of duties and responsibilities.
All right,
but that's what I mean, though, because it's just been a buildup since he came in. Because it started with the lies, and it started with the kind of weird, like, misinformation here and there. And he's putting people in places that they have no business being, like the woman that's in charge of education has no idea what the fuck it's about.
Betsy.
So
she's got $3 billion. That's why she's there.
Right.
So you start with that, and then this bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because I always said, listen, even before Trump got elected, we were headed in this direction anyway for various reasons. But Trump really sped up the clock. And it builds up and builds up, because he's giving people misinformation, and the misinformation gets more and more dangerous. And the people in charge of things that have no idea what they're doing, it gets more and more tedious. And over time, it just keeps building and building. And it's like a powder keg. And then you add all of this racial stuff, and then you add COVID, and then you have him riling people up, like, to liberate their state with the COVID thing. And, like, it's a war on, like, science, because it's like, well, the scientists say this, but no, we should just go. And it just keeps building and building. And then, just like Len said, it's like this thing with George Floyd was just the straw.
Yep.
And all of these things were cooking for so long that one thing just finally, bang, set everything off.
Do we forget this guy's rise to prominence was on the back of 2 things? It was birtherism and the illegitimacy of an African-American president, and the wall.
Yep.
Those things are so far in our past, but he came out of the gate stoking lies and just trying to
just pure bullshit.
And it's it just jumps from one thing to the next. What's going to be the next COVID? What's going to be the next, riots? It's like, as long as he's in office, it's just going to be, this is going to be the next thing. What's next? I don't know.
So I just pulled up the Wikipedia for 2020 so far, and I just want to give you guys a quick timeline.
a picture of a giant dumpster fire.
I mean, really, it should be.
Because that's what it should be.
So, let's just say January 16th, that's when the impeachment trial started. Let's not forget that they tried to impeach this motherfucker. Well, they did impeach him earlier this year. The U.S. Senate acquits him on February 5th. But in the meantime, on January 30th, the World Health Organization starts talking about seriously talking about the pandemic.
Right.
January 31st, the UK and Gibraltar pull out the European Union. Pulled out. So then, by February 11th, the World Health Organization named it COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
The 27th, we got the stock market crashing. Meanwhile, all the people in government are pulling off all kinds of insider trades with the knowledge of this stock market crash. I mean, we've been looted hand over fist for years, and they just continued to do it right under our noses. Now they've been cleared of it, and we're only up to the end of February at this point, and then we've been stuck inside from the middle of March straight on through till now with all this other bullshit that's going on. Like, what the fuck?
By the way, let me just go back to something, because adding to that soup that we were talking about, COVID turns into all kinds of unemployment for a lot of people with no idea, or even if they're furloughed or whatever, they have no idea when they're going to go back to work.
Yeah, I mean,
you send out the stimulus check, which is what, $1,200? Like, what the fuck is $1,200? In New York, you can't even pay your rent with $1,200. And in most places, it's like, what?
I live in New Jersey.
$1,200 might be your rent in one bill.
In New Jersey, it's barely rent.
It's barely rent, no utilities. You can't buy a Snickers bar with that. It's just, that's it.
Not even a bag of Cheetos. Nothing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This is really appreciated. It's like, but this is all, this is all what I'm talking about with just making everybody crazy.
Now that I've drank something. March 16th, the Dow Jones falls by basically 3,000 points. Largest point drop in history. And we're all seeing this as it's going on. Yet, meanwhile, the president, not necessarily silent, but definitely not giving any clear direction. We do not have an actual president right now.
Well,
we do not have a leader.
Hold on.
I know that the Dow Jones has necessarily nothing to do with the presidency, but all these things converging at once.
Well, but I'll tell you something funny about that, because we happen to watch, we happen to talk about this in my job. If you're watching back then, if you were watching like CNN or whatever, we were at my job watching one of these places that has a stock ticker on the bottom, one of these channels. Right. And anytime Trump would go and give a speech, you would watch the stock ticker drop. You would watch the numbers drop as soon as he opened his mouth, which is funny. But I mean, it's a steady decline. And I just don't, I really don't even know, there's so much to it that is all led in this, even without all this recent stuff, there was so much happening years behind that was all leading to something, and then Trump came in and just poured a bunch of lighter fluid on it and was like, let's get this bitch going.
100%.
Yeah. And since he's been in office, it's just been one thing after another. And, like I said, just giving people misinformation left and right. And then he's got the nerve to blow a fit when Twitter fact checks him. When meanwhile, the guy is single-handedly, and I said this and people argued with me about this on Facebook, I will put it out there that I think he is single-handedly keeping Twitter in business.
He's absolutely keeping them in business. And if you look at their terms of service, they should have kicked him the fuck off of there before he even got in office.
Yeah, but if they did that, then they'd have nothing. Because Twitter...
Then the platform dies. I understand that. I don't use it. I don't give a shit about Twitter.
No, I don't use it either.
But the truth is that he... And it's funny because he was chastising Twitter, and I think he realized for just a quick second that I'm cutting off the hand that feeds me. Because there's no way for him to get his 80 million followers... these hillbilly motherfuckers who barely know how to use the internet, to get them to some other platform. He's managed to consolidate them there where he can, fan the flames. But if Twitter were to just cut him off, where his people will be lost in the ether.
His people would be lost, and Twitter would be lost because before he got elected, Twitter was looking for buyers, and they couldn't find anybody because they didn't think there was really any growth to it. But now
every chat app now has that as a feature of it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and nobody needs 80 characters anymore. It's an outdated animal. But the thing is Twitter and Trump are now strange bedfellows. They're in this together. They are joined at the hip. They can't get away from one another. They can't stand each other, but they need each other.
That's what I'm saying, because 90% of the information that he puts out there comes from Twitter. It's lies, but it comes from Twitter. The guy is on Twitter posting 50 times a fucking day. And it's just... and if you look at it, from the business perspective, any web-based business or like app, things like that, what they make their money on is exposure. They have X amount of views, X amount of hits, whatever, and then they go and they sell advertising based on that, and that's where their money comes in. So all day, every single news channel, every single news website, anything like that, is talking about and linking Twitter. So because of that exposure, they're making money, because that's the numbers that they take to sell ads. And that is why I say he's single-handedly keeping the place going, because at this point, Twitter's a fucking sewer. It's filled with all kinds of bullshit. But I would guarantee you that most of their traffic is coming from Donald Trump. So that's where their money's coming from. And I said before, I think once Trump leaves office, he'd probably buy the fucking thing.
You know what? You're probably not wrong.
I mean, why not?
How's he going to buy it? We'll let it crash because he don't got that kind of money. He's poor as everybody else. He's just a poser. Everybody thinks he's got money, but he's been bankrupt more time. I don't know whether he's more financially bankrupt or more emotionally bankrupt.
He'll do what everybody else does nowadays, and he'll get some investors to go in with him for some bullshit.
Yeah, and I understand. It's just it's more the irony of it.
Oh, of course, but that's everything with Trump is just irony, because it's just the ridiculousness of the whole thing.
Speaking of irony,
yes,
idiocracy. President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho was a better president than our own president, because he at least listened to the smartest guy available.
Right.
How can you listen to the smartest guy in the room when you are the smartest guy in the room? At least that's how he thinks.
In your mind, yeah.
Yep.
I just... Listen, you mentioned idiocracy now, and I just start to tear up because it's just so scary how close we are, in ways that we never expected and never thought would exist.
Well, I knew right away that we were headed down that road when America's Funniest Home Videos went away. And then eventually, over time, it came back, but it was on MTV. And it was on the MTV called Ridiculousness. And it was basically, ow my balls. Because every single episode was about somebody getting hit in the nuts or falling down and getting hurt. Like, it wasn't just cute, funny videos. It was now about demeaning things happening to human beings.
Right.
And I was like,
there's 100 other shows like that now too.
Yep. So I'm like, we're already on the path. We got food coming out of machines, and I'm not talking about like regular vending machines. I'm talking like real ass food coming out of machines. Right. I mean, we're like, I'm waiting to be unscannable at this point.
I mean,
as long as you got a face and there's high definition cameras, you're probably being scanned right now. I'm
sure somebody, Skype is scanning me right now. That is what.
Like I said, look, I mean, guys, I appreciate you guys bringing me into the conversation. I love this shit, and Len knows that full well. Gary, like I said, I don't know. I see your reposts and stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and I really don't know what your political, like how active you are politically. I know for me, I know I've watched, Len's political evolution. I've always been a hyper-political guy since I was really, really young. But I've watched, Len's political lens get more focused as you've gotten older. I guess you've gotten more aware of politics. Because like I said, maybe back in the day, we would have never had a conversation about politics in any way, shape, or form. But I guess, life is different now. It impacts all of us very directly. But
well, I'm going to have to, not to cut you off from your statement, but if you can go to a hardcore show or a true punk show and not learn something and open your mind and push yourself towards understanding what is going on around you and make you interested in learning more and digging deeper, then you're not there for the right reasons. And that's the reason why I met Gary, is by going to shows. And like, his band is not necessarily a political band, but they do talk about issues that are near and dear to their hearts. And when you hear it and you take it in,
let me explain that a little more, because the truth is,
are you a political band?
We're not a political band, but we do have our moments like that.
Because, right, and that's what I was saying. It's like, that's not the
because
your band.
And we can't avoid it, because let's face it, my drummer's half black, walks around with an afro, so it's not like he can hide it. My singer's Dominican. My guitarist is part Filipino. So like we're, and I'm Hispanic, so we're a mix. Like I said at the top, both my parents were born in Puerto Rico. Most people think I'm white. They don't realize it. But, there are times when we'll address stuff like this. Like I said, we had the song Slip Shots, which was about, the Amadou Diallo situation. And we had another song called Narco Cabron, which was about crooked cops. And, we've had a few songs that have gotten political over time. It's not our regular thing, but we dabble in it a little bit. Because, let's face it, we're from the New York City area, and this is shit we run into. Racism is a real thing. We've dealt with it. Before I was in the band, well, listen, there's a song called Justice Unknown, and the story of that song is, before I was in the band, Billy Club's playing on stage, and some guy's like, yo, why don't these dudes speak fucking English? And it turned into a huge fucking mess. And the dude got beaten out of the club. And it all came from that. So, the racism is a real thing. And we've had white power people pop up at our shows and get handled because they open their mouth, and that's just...
They pop up and they get popped out. It is.
Well, but like you said, if you go to a hardcore show, like, politics and punk rock and hardcore, you've got bands that don't do that type of stuff, but it's always been kind of an element there, sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger.
Well, I mean, but also, I got into it in the 90s when there was a lot more of it than there is now.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would argue that current hardcore is definitely way further away from it, much like hip hop is much further away from where they were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's also the perspective of growing within that. So that was my sidebar. Please finish what you were saying, sir.
No, what I was saying is that, you talk about music, and like I said, I come from a very different perspective musically. Like, I don't play in a band, I can't play an instrument, I can't sing, but I do have a very high respect and regard for music, and music and lyrics are politics. It's your way of expressing your politics, whether you're listening or whether you're writing, or no matter what you're doing. Music is, it's kind of like the through line through like people's like souls and existence. Like however you consume music, whatever side of the fence you're on, whatever type of music you listen to, there's something embedded in there for everybody. And obviously we all interpret it differently. We all can listen to the same song and hear something very different and feel something very different. But like, music is such an important through line for everyone. So like, if you feel passionately about music in some or any form and you take it seriously from whatever paradigm you come from, it is politics, and it is like it's part of your ethos.
It's your makeup. It's your DNA. Yeah. It's part of your DNA makeup, bro.
I mean, I can't explain, you know, how important music is to me, like on a day-to-day, week-to-week, you know.
I'm the last person you need to explain it to.
Yeah, I know. I'm an old man at this point, but if I'm not listening to new music from new bands on new playlists from new sources and consuming ravenously, you know, that's like kind of like what keeps me invigorated. Like I said, I run across all these people that are my age and they're still listening to this whatever shit they were listening to when they graduated high school. I'm like, I don't even remember what the fuck I was listening to when I got out of high school. But, you know, and not to say it's not still in the library in the catalog somewhere, but I have moved so far past that, and I'm still like I said, I like people's parents. It's like, well, you know, well, yeah, they got their '60s records and that's it. I'm like, well, what happened? Like, what happened to you? Like, music was just a phase. It's not a phase for me, and it's not a phase for you guys. It's just a through line, and it's just something that stays with you. And once you leave it behind, then you actually become old and you become stuck. And maybe you become stuck politically, and maybe that's when you become Republican. I don't know. But
I mean, speaking for myself, like, you know, with music, it's like what we do and what we talk about in our music, we talk about different things because it's like, it's a reflection of our life. So like, some of it is fun, some of it is a little more serious, and we'll tell different stories and things like that. Sometimes we get into politics because I don't walk around. I mean, lately I'm more into it than I was at times, but it's not like my whole day is just all politics. Right. So, you know, you'll have a song that's more political, then you'll have a song that's more fun, and then a song that tells a different story or whatever, and that's just, you know, it's a reflection like that. To address what you said earlier, just as far as my political background, like, I was always into the news. Like, I was reading newspapers when I was a kid and dabbled in politics a little bit, this and that, and I remember the Reagan years and Clinton and things like that. I didn't get really more serious into it until after 9/11, because after 9/11, suddenly, like, everything was news channels in New York, and I just was consumed with that and absorbing all of that and the national politics that were involved in that. And I was really heavily into that until the election that led to Obama, because it was just it became so partisan that I was just like, you know, this is some fucking bullshit. Like, it's just stupid, because it was just so blatant that it's like, you know, CNN is all Obama and, you know, Fox News is anti-Obama. And it just became so separated that I just got kind of disillusioned with it. But I always paid attention to it. And I hate the two-party system. Like we were talking about earlier with the Electoral College and all that shit. I hate the two-party system because it really just limits the whole thing. And that's why when we were talking about Bernie, I would love to see somebody, and I think he had the best chance ever, I would love to see somebody have a legit run with a third-party candidate, because I think that's what we need, because this two-party system is bullshit. And this election proves it, because like we said, you've got, you know, creepy rapist 1 and creepy racist 2. Like,
I don't quote South Park too often, but, you know, when they did their thing on politics about the the two-party system, it's like either you're voting for a giant douche or a turd sandwich. And
exactly.
And it's like, well, which is it? Pick your poison. What is the least offensive? And politics shouldn't be about that.
Right. And that's the whole problem, because that's really what it's and it's always kind of been like that, but never was it more blatant than the Obama election, because it just became so partisan and so borderline racist.
No, it wasn't borderline racist.
There was no border. There was no borderline on that.
Yeah, but it was just the idea, and I said back then, I said, listen, Obama's going to get elected, and no matter what he does, they're going to shit on him, because everything was all hope, and I'm like, you don't realize, and we're still dealing with this now, like a lot of these problems that exist now go back to the Reagan years, at least. Like, some of this shit has been going on for so long, and like, there's no real way to solve them.
It's so ingrained in our system.
Well,
and unfortunately with Trump, basically he came in and he basically said, I am not going to abide by the normal corrals and cattle chutes that most milquetoast presidents function in. He just said, screw it. I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want, and I'm going to see if anybody checks me. And unfortunately, we have a feckless douchebag named Mitch McConnell in the Senate who's more concerned about getting these lunatic judges that are not in step with anything that has anything to do with like the normal cross section of America. That's his whole bane and mission. So him and Trump are in bed together because they're both running cover for one another because they're both doing each other's bidding. So McConnell tolerates Trump because Trump tolerates McConnell. Trump doesn't give a shit about judges, and McConnell gives Trump a free pass. But if we had a Democratic Senate and a Democratic Congress that could check him, you better believe that a lot of this shit wouldn't be happening.
Well, that was the trick with the Trump election, because I saw it that Trump was going to win, but what I did not expect was that the Republicans would take the Senate. And once that happened, it was like, oh shit, because nobody expected that to happen, and then all of a sudden now there's no checks for Trump. He could do whatever the fuck he wants, which is exactly what he's done. And it's just become such a complete mess. But like I said, it's become so partisan and gotten worse and worse over time. But when Obama got elected, it's like they set him up no matter what. And listen, he did good. I have issues with him, just like I have issues with every president and every politician in general. But there are people that just hate the guy. And I mean, Jesus Christ, look at what they did with Obamacare. Like, how many times did they try to repeal the fucking thing? It's like it already passed. Like, let it go.
All you got to do is go back to 2007, 2008, and you can lift those words from Mitch McConnell's mouth. And he basically said it. He said it out loud, what everybody was thinking. This guy, Obama, is not going to get anything done. We are going to fight him tooth and nail the whole way. We are going to make his presidency ineffective. And if you come to the table with that attitude, of course it's doomed.
Yeah, of course nothing's going to get done. But that's, but you see, and it's funny because you got people talking about how they feel and talking about like, oh, well, what this country was based on, this and that. Like, this country was never based on the idea of career politicians. Like, the original idea of this country was that these people would put in their couple of years of service or whatever, and then go back to doing whatever they were doing, whether it was their fucking doctor practice or their law practice or whatever the fuck it was. It was never this whole idea of, having
permanent residents,
career politicians who are in there forever. Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of the problem with this whole thing, because you see these guys that are in there for 20, 30, 40 years, but that's why the whole system is fucked up, because now you've got the deregulation, because like what I was talking about with everybody being in with the corporations and the real estate people and tobacco and all this other shit. So
healthcare,
the whole system is designed to benefit those people.
2 words: Citizens United. Citizens United. When they took the cap off of what people, dark money in politics, what people could give, whatever was half broken, it was shattered.
Right.
Everybody that's in Washington is got their mouth on the teat of the political dollar, the whatever it is, wherever your dark money's coming from, whether it's coming from the lobbyists or the private interest or the rich people who are pumping money into the system to keep their profile high so they can make a phone call and be in with who. Like I said, Citizens United, whatever was left, it's broken.
Right.
As I said, no lube whatsoever to be found now. Nothing. Nope. We're just getting dry fucked. They didn't even spit on it. They didn't even spit on it.
Nope.
But that's going on everywhere. Because listen, look at New York. Because everybody all of a sudden loves Bloomberg. People hated Bloomberg. People hated fucking Bloomberg because he just continued to. Yeah, but he just continued what Giuliani had been doing. But he also sold out so much of New York City to real estate interests, among other things. He did a lot of other stuff because I can tell you, as someone who works with the city, there are a lot of different things that he did that we're still feeling the effects of it now. But
stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk
hard.
Right. But he sold out so much of the city to real estate interests. There are huge spaces, huge retail stores that are sitting there empty and have been sitting there empty for years. And it's because it's a better tax write-off for them than to actually get somebody in that damn space. So you're going up and down. Like I used to take the bus to work, my old job. I used to go down Fifth Avenue and up Madison Avenue every day, and just a massive amount of empty storefronts because it was better for them to have the space completely empty and use it as a tax write-off. And now that's why, listen, tying it into music, there's hardly any clubs that do hardcore shows in Manhattan anymore because they can't afford the fucking rent. There's hardly any, like the number of mom and pop stores, even before COVID, was shrinking and shrinking because the rents were just ridiculously high. And that a lot of that came from Bloomberg. And it's like, your mom and pop pizza place down the block can't stay there because they upped the rent like a couple of $1,000 a month, and then they have to leave, and then suddenly a fucking Chipotle moves in because Chipotle's got the corporate money so they can pay the rent.
And they
because
also
they're
the corporate foot traffic because
right.
There are just going to be more people that are going to go to the Chipotle than that are going to go to the mom and pop pizza place. It's just
right.
the way it goes.
And in the end, the math all works out because whatever Chipotle out in fucking bumfuck is making big profits to keep that place open.
Right. Or they're running at a loss and they can afford it because they take tax write-off. And it looks good for them to have a location on Fifth Avenue, and it's all about marketing and advertising and perception.
Exactly.
And look, I love Chipotle as much as the next guy, but we don't need a Chipotle on that corner. We need so and so's pizza shop.
That's exactly my point. It's like I saw so many mom and pop places close down, and all kinds of restaurants. But look, even record stores, we're talking about.
There are no records. The record stores are a dead option at this point.
You've got Generation Records in the Village. That's it. But when it came to hardcore, like you used to have Bleecker Bob's, you used to have all these other places, and they all closed. And same for clubs. Like, look, where the Continental used to be, they tore that whole block up.
It's all gone.
And they're putting like condos or whatever. St. Mark's Place, where Coney Island High used to be. is all
Yep.
fancy restaurants, charging you $30 for a fucking hockey puck burger.
CB's is gone.
CB's
I mean, like,
is gone.
All the wetlands is gone. Like, all the places that I cut my teeth taking trains to the city to go see random shows. And Andy, I'm sure you went to at least a couple of these on these CMJ.
Oh yeah,
things.
I've
Heading
been
up
to,
this.
I have been to every club you're talking about and 20 more, and they're all gone. And because of all these like neighborhoods in Jersey City that have to be gentrified, because like Lord knows, you need like a wine bar down there, and like it's a sad de-evolution of the the mom and pop entity of anything.
Right.
20 years from now, we're all gonna have to go buy our shit at Target or Walmart or Home
Welcome
Depot.
to Costco. I love you.
We're not gonna have a choice, and that's it.
Well, listen, even the same thing. Look at music stores. Like, I'm sitting here in the Bronx right now. I could tell you there used to be over the course of my life living in the Bronx, there used to be a bunch of music stores around at different times within 20 minutes, half hour of here. Now there's like 2. And same for music studios, like rehearsal studios. All that stuff is all gone. And
I run the only rehearsal studio in all of Ewing Township and most of Mercer County. I run one of few commercial recording studios in that same general space. I think there are like 5 or 6 others in Mercer County total. There used to be, I think, close to 30. As for record stores, me and Andy used to go to Princeton Record Exchange 2-3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
But we also went to a number of other record stores in the general area. I'm going to call it a 20-minute swath of Ewing Township.
Right.
There's only one record store left, and that's still Princeton Record Exchange. And
I was just say that's the only one that's still there. Right?
I'm interested to see if they're going to make it out of this. They've been closed for 2 months.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other part of it, but
they'll make it.
I'm talking about these things just in general, but then when you add all of this COVID stuff and the blow from that, like that's just like I'm scared to see what small businesses actually are able to make it out of this thing.
Like,
all I want
to do, I think a lot of them just aren't going to make it.
Go to Princeton, go to the Record Exchange, and go to Chuck's.
Chuck's. Yep, go to Chuck's. Get some fucking wings or burgers or whatever you decide to get that day, and them fries.
Yep.
And chow. Peruse over the things that you just purchased at the Record Exchange, and then head home and
go back to school.
Or yeah, and get into your bliss place, which is listening to music.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see. I mean, yeah, they're probably going to reopen. I mean, the guy who owns it, is pretty shrewd, but I don't know, man. You got Princeton rent for 2 months, and you're not in there.
I think they own the building.
They own the building?
That's good. That's perfect, because I was going to say the only way that place might have a chance is if they own the building.
They own the building. They have a tremendous mail order business for collectible vinyl.
Are they still doing online stuff like that?
Yeah, that's the only thing that's going to keep them in business is the collectible vinyl. That will keep them afloat. Like, they may have no business in CDs because you can't sell a CD because nobody buys them anymore. But used shit. I think, like I said, if I'm right and they own the building and the rent and the property taxes end up obscene, I think they will probably be like the last of the dinosaurs. But like I said, they have to convert. They have to do that mail order business. They have to sell shit on eBay. They have to deal with the collectors and the shows and that kind of stuff. But if it's not the vinyl, it's going to keep them in business. They're dead.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I mean, there's just no other way to stay in business. And like, I've been happy in our town that Gary, you gotta understand, Andy lives about 2 miles or 3 miles from me. He lives in the same neighborhood as my mother.
Okay.
And he lives across the street from my uncle. Like, legitimately, their doors are, you can walk out one and right into the other.
So, I literally see Len's mom's car across the street. Like, I haven't run into her in about 2 months, but
because she's been
me coming out of my house, I might see her coming out of Len's uncle's house.
Right.
So we're in the same town. All of the restaurants here, with the exception of a few, are gangbusters with online orders, delivery through Grubhub and all the different services, and then you can also go and walk in and buy food. The ones that are sucking wind are the ones that only had foot traffic because their food is fucking terrible. So there's like there's a number of them that I know of that are truly struggling, and I'm like, well, you should really kind of look at yourself and go, what am I offering if I'm really dying on the vine here? Because there are no rules against people coming in for takeout or calling you for a delivery. So are you not offering delivery? And if you aren't, why aren't you smart enough to get on at least one of these services to circumvent the issue of not having your own drivers? Or does your food suck? But regardless, I'm happy to know that some of my favorite places were able to weather this storm of being quote unquote closed to inside eating customers.
Right.
But I'm still interested to see who is not there. Not when we reopen in 2 weeks, a month, or whenever it really rolls into effect. But
next year, when the dust settles.
Yeah, as the dust settles over the course of the next 6 months, who can't hack it?
Don't forget this either, too. You're talking about businesses run by older folks that may be tech averse, don't understand app culture, don't understand the internet, how to advertise.
I posted it earlier. What the fuck is the internet?
Yeah, like it's like, so if you got somebody that's tech averse, they're not on these platforms, they're oblivious. Just running a brick and mortar restaurant, you're some old guy making pizza. That's all you know. You don't understand how the front end of the business works. If you don't have a niece or a nephew or somebody or a grandson who can help you fix that shit, you might just be dead, and your food might be great and your clientele might be steady, but in today's environment, you can't cut it because you have to jump over all these hurdles.
And I used to deal with people like that because I used to work for one of those websites, and I used to do customer service for a couple of those websites. So I used to have to deal with people like that just didn't know the technology at all. And and I see it, and I know, that's what's helping a lot of these guys stay alive right now, because I order food every now and again, and I, like some of the local restaurant owners I know, just from, I used to walk into their stores and just having conversations with them. It's like, they're staying alive. It's an adjustment, but they're doing okay.
Right. So I'm speaking of one in particular. I'm not going to say the name of the location, but it's not too far from my studio, and it's a pizza place, and legitimately there is no one in there ever picking up food, and they're open, and sometimes I'll go down there while I'm at the studio just getting something done, just to like buy a soda or something, and like the phone isn't ringing. He doesn't have internet service, so he's not getting internet orders. He's not on Grubhub. He's not on any of these other services. And I'm like, I don't understand, short of the fact that you've been here for 40 years in this location, and your rent is probably mediocrely low, because I know what my rent is. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you're surviving in here, because you don't have any business. So A, your product is going bad, and B, you got rent to pay. You got employees to pay. Like, how the fuck are you doing this? You need to get up on the times.
That's crazy.
But this all comes down to a lack of response from our government when we needed it most. And that is, we'll call it mid-January, when the first reports started to show up. We should have been on it at that point, but we canceled the fucking pandemic response team months and months and months ahead of time. So, like, what the fuck did you expect to happen?
And then he said it was Obama's fault.
Right. They left him a playbook, 76 pages or something like that. No, they said 69 pages. Care. 69 pages of exactly what to do to thwart this.
Yeah, and they ran they did a dry run, like a pandemic exercise. They during the handoff, they did all this shit, and they laughed. They were like, you know what? Of all the bloated government waste at the federal government level, that was the group you cut? I don't know.
Yeah, it just absolutely insane to me that occurred, and then the subsequent blaming of that same team that gave you the warning. Like, are you kidding me?
You got warnings from the World Health Organization. You got the warnings from the UN. And then now that we pull out of the World Health Organization, I don't know how that helps anything in the middle of a pandemic.
It doesn't.
I mean, the bottom line is, this guy just needs to go. We need to get him out of here. I mean, I'm not into making predictions. I don't make predictions anymore after 2016. I'm done with that. But you know, like, just for the sake and health and survival of our country, the guy needs to go. If we're not leading on the world stage, like,
all right. I brought this up last week to Gary, and it's still a point that I think needs to be made. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, China was still not necessarily third world when it comes to money, but they didn't have the GDP that we had by any stretch. By 2025, they're predicted to have more GDP than we are, and there will be the world leader in quote-unquote monetary resource. We are no longer going to be leading the world by an exponential amount. We need to not necessarily take care of that now, but we need to understand that our position is changing, and we need to change how we think and how we act. Mm-hmm. And it should have happened years ago.
We've abdicated our role in the last 3 years on the world stage.
Exactly.
Why
we're just falling behind now?
Why are we?
Well, because we're giving it all away. That's part of it. Like what we were talking about before with all the corporate stuff, it's like we're shipping all these jobs elsewhere. Like, of course they're, you know, I mean, and look, with COVID, it came up too, because look, they were talking about the vaccines and stuff like that. And where do we get all the shit for the vaccines and like the tests and stuff like that? China. So let me ask you a question. If they're going to eclipse us, maybe that's why. Like, we're just giving them everything because they can do it for cheaper, and all we're concerned about.
It's like what I was saying, PPE from them.
Right.
They have 10 times our population. Number one, that's the first thing. They have a communist dictatorial regime that allows them to do whatever they want. So, you know, they don't have to they don't have to jump the hurdles that we do to have to get shit done here. We don't have to reach a consensus. We don't have to ask. They decide, you know, they're gonna go lock down Hong Kong. Well, they just go do it. Yep. You know, they roll the military in. I mean, it's kind of scary. It's kind of happening here right now. But, you know, like I said, they're playing. We're trying to compete with them, but they're playing by a whole different set of rules.
Yeah, because they've got people manufacturing stuff for like a couple of cents a day.
We can't play on that field. No. We have to do other shit.
But that's why, you know, like I said, you know, if we start bringing the jobs back, then the numbers will change. But there's wiggle room, but nobody wants to do anything about it because, you know, and automatically people call Bernie a communist, but it's just the idea of like these guys have all these millions of dollars, like take a little cut and maybe we can bring some of those jobs back to the States, because then we can pay those people, you know, instead of somebody in China getting paid 3 cents a day to make shit, we have somebody here making shit, and then we're not dependent on these other countries anymore. And that was kind of where Trump was trying to take it, but he never had any real plan to actually do it. He was just making promises.
He just told them that that's what he wanted to do.
But
and then now he's turning around. He's lining his pockets.
Yep,
of course.
Lining his friend's
but
pockets.
that's because people were so fucking desperate.
Yep.
Like I said before, it's like you go to a room full of hungry people, you're waving a couple of burgers around, everybody's going to take a bite. Like, they're dying. People are just dying all over the place. That's how it is. So you can't be surprised. And it was just, I mean, that election was just a perfect storm of that stuff with Trump, and also Hillary just completely screwing the pooch in every way, shape, and form. Well, I shouldn't even just say Hillary. Hillary and the Democratic Party just screwing it every which way. Because would Bernie have won? I don't know.
I don't think so.
But I think Bernie might have had a better chance, maybe. But
if he had gotten the nomination, yes.
Yeah. I think he might have had a better chance simply because he would have brought more votes in. Because a lot of the people that were going to vote for Bernie were just like, fuck this, and just didn't vote at all.
Now, devil's advocate, if you think that way, do you believe that the people who were going to vote for Hillary would have bucked up and just voted for Bernie anyway?
I don't know.
Because that's the only other argument I could make against the fact that I think he could have won, is that is America ready?
Well,
and this is really what it comes down to, is we just had a black president for 8 years. Was the America ready for a woman president? Was America ready for a Jewish president, especially one with what they're going to call a socialist,
stereotypical tendencies?
Right. Like, was this going to go through? Regardless of whether he had the groundswell or did not, and whether it continued through this cycle, were these people going to actually show up and vote to make it happen?
I don't know.
And I'm not convinced.
I think Trump stoked just enough fear for Hillary, and he would have done the same thing for Bernie. It just would have been a slightly different playbook. And I think that we were victims of both Democratic options were flawed in different ways. So we may have been screwed either way.
See, I think Bernie would have had a better chance, partly because he would have brought in a lot more voters, but also the real question there would be, does the Democratic Party cut the shit and actually get behind Bernie, which they never did. Because in that whole election, because I've talked about this all the fucking time, that whole election, if you looked at the Democratic website during the primaries, when you have two candidates, Bernie is never mentioned once on their website anywhere. And that's
they didn't want him.
They didn't want him.
Any party.
No.
He was outside the establishment.
But you see, that was part of the problem, because then when it made it obvious that the fix was in. Because
it made it obvious that the Democrats couldn't realize that where the groundswell of support was, where the people were, where the excitement was, where the enthusiasm was not with Hillary, but that's where the establishment went, and that's where the establishment money and where you say the fix was in. That's where they all were sitting. And by the time anybody realized that Hillary Clinton was rotting garbage, it was too late.
But all right, argument could be made that she had it in the bag when she ran against Obama to try and get that nomination, and she didn't get it then because she was still that same rotting bag of trash. Why do you think that she's not still a rotting bag of trash 8 years later.
Bag of tricks.
Right, but I'm just saying, we're talking 8 years later. 8 years have passed since she fumbled on. She was at first down and 10. She had 10 yards to go, and she loses to Obama because he comes out of nowhere and trucks her.
A freshman senator from Illinois came out of the shadows in a natural, organic way and cleaned her clock.
Exactly. Now, that's 07. Fast forward 8 years. Same shit. You've got Bernie Sanders and a rotting pile of garbage.
Right.
On fire in the dumpster, and you're like, nah, this is the one we're going with. You didn't think that was going to go wrong for you? You thought that Donald Trump was that weak a candidate?
Yes.
They just banked on, but that's why I said it was the perfect storm, because Trump ended up getting all that support from all these people in these towns that have no fucking jobs. He's promising all these things, and everybody's just so desperate. And let's face it, Hillary was a fucking rotting garbage bag for a bunch of reasons, and part of it was that she was seen as the same old shit, which she was.
I think people got a very, very short memory. Do we remember when he was running against Clinton in 2011? He was planting the same predicates. It's fixed, it's rigged, it's not fair, because he was expecting to lose. He never thought he was going to win.
Yep.
He's planting the same predicates that he's trying to undermine mail-in voting and all this other shit right now.
Right.
He's sowing the same doubt, so when the time comes that he loses, he can say this was illegitimate, it was a fix, I was cheated, I was robbed, yada yada, there was voter fraud, which there's no such thing, it doesn't exist, it's infinitesimal. And again, like I said, though, he's pulling out the same playbook,
right?
And nobody remembers from 2011 when he was playing the victim card then, and he was, like I said, he was expecting to springboard into some political career for like being a talk show host. Even his people inside didn't think he was going to win.
Well, that leads me to a question for both of you guys. That is something that I've discussed a bunch of times in the past, and a few times in the past couple of days. Trump loses in November. Will he actually leave?
That was the question I was going with next.
Yep.
So you got me. Go ahead, Andy. I want to hear you.
It's going to be some type of constitutional showdown, and it's going to require the Senate and the Congress. Like, I don't know if everybody remembers. Like I said, I'm an old school political watcher, and this was before my time. But way back in the day, during Watergate, when the Republican leadership went, and when Tip O'Neill went to Nixon and said, "It's done, you got to go." So who in the Republican Party is going to go up to Capitol Hill and say, "It's
not, bro,
you got to go"?
It's not for you no more.
That's what I'm saying. That's the part that terrifies me. Who is going to be the one that's going to say, "You lost"? And like I said, aside from the fact that unless Biden wins in a categorical landslide,
which is not going to
happen.
But even if he wins legitimately, I think, like I said, the seeds of doubt have already been planted. He's sowing those seeds. It's fixed. I've been cheated, yada, yada. And I think, like I said, this is, Len, like I said to you, I said, we are just at the tip of
the bullshit
chaos.
Yep.
It's going to roll right into the fall as this campaign gets filthy and nasty. And the more Trump feels himself slipping, the more desperate and cornered he's going to feel. And the more outrageous he's going to get, and the more distractions, and the more self-deprecating, self-destructive behavior. Because he doesn't care about the country.
He cares about himself.
That's it.
That's all he cares about is himself.
Every other presidential candidate and president before this time has at least revered the office and had respect for the system. This guy doesn't give a shit about anybody. So if he burns it down as he goes out the door, he don't give a fuck.
No. I think that he's already been planting these seeds, and I think it started with the coronavirus. Because, and it's funny because I had always thought this, and then I've seen a few articles recently getting deep into this, that he is trying very hard to have himself seen as a quote-unquote wartime president. And it's because of all the, because there ain't no war going on.
He tried. They said there was World War III almost popped off in January.
Right. But this is all what he's talking about. He's talking about, that it's, all of this all this partisan stuff is war, and like now the coronavirus thing, and it's the idea of like he would pose that it would not be a good idea to change leadership during wartime, using the coronavirus as the quote unquote war.
He will use now being in at the time.
But now he's planting the seed again with the whole mail-in vote thing, which meanwhile, if mail-in voting is so rife with fraud, how have we not heard about it before? Because you know who does mail-in voting?
California, Oregon.
How about all of our troops that serve overseas?
Yep.
Like,
there's the voter fraud is non-existent. It doesn't exist. I think they did some studies, and I think they said they found in Florida, they found out of 1.5 million votes cast, I think they found 14 potentially questionable instances.
See, I would disagree with that because I think there's plenty of opportunities for voter fraud, but I don't think mail-in is the problem. Like, look at all the weird shit that went on with the primaries with Hillary and Bernie. Like, there was some questionable stuff with people being off the voter rolls and stuff like that. So, it's not, I wouldn't say that voter fraud doesn't exist, but I don't think your mail-ins are your problem.
I don't necessarily know if it's voter fraud. You're talking about voter rolls. I think you're talking about another scary thing because you're talking about if you register to vote, why should you ever be purged from those voter rolls?
Well, exactly.
You should never be purged from those.
But that's what I'm talking about because that's fraud in itself. But that was
voter suppression.
Right. I mean, okay, maybe I'm using the wrong phrase. Either way, a lot of sketchy shit going on. So, because there was a lot of that happening with Hillary and Bernie in the primaries, all over the place, and that was what disenfranchised a lot of people. But I don't think that's what Trump is talking about.
When Donald Trump says if everybody votes, the Republicans will never win an election. He's basically taking the mask off.
Right.
If Republicans in southern states that are maybe red but are trending purple, like Georgia or Florida or even Texas soon, if they weren't suppressing the votes and creating all kinds of hurdles and voter identification and all kinds of other bullshit that doesn't have anything to do with voting, if they were putting up all these barricades, the Republicans would never win. And Trump admitted it at a press conference. He said that's like the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, that Trump is talking about voter fraud and this and that. It's like, you know what? That whole process is so flawed already. Like, oh, now all of a sudden the fix is in, fucking you. Like, stop. Just stop.
Well, he was saying that in 2007.
Right.
He was playing.
Yeah, because I remember they asked, would you concede? And he was like, I don't know.
He was planting those seeds in case he lost, so he could raise a big stink.
Well, my other thing too is when it comes to the election and in January when he's supposed to leave the office. Yeah, he's planted these seeds so far. How many other seeds have been planted that we don't even know about yet? Because
who knows?
Look at all the crazy shit that's happened. We're just starting June, and look at all the crazy shit that's happened this year already. Like, who the fuck knows what might be coming? I was joking around with my boss today because she mentioned to me that I guess there were some new Ebola cases somewhere today.
Jesus Christ, that's all we need.
And she's like, God, what's going to be next? And I just sent her a picture of Godzilla. I'm like, this is what's coming in July. Yeah, we're just going to start getting fucking kaiju walking up on the shores. In July.
Wait until about 2 weeks from now when you see the fallout, the COVID fallout from all the protests
with no masks
packed back to back and belly to belly, just like right up, screaming and yelling in each other's faces. You don't think there's going to be a huge surge in COVID in another couple of weeks from all this?
It's coming.
I had to laugh about that too because, and I said it on Facebook that
is COVID over now?
These people are setting cop cars on fire, and the people on CNN are talking about, they're not socially distancing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what they're fucking worried about. They're setting a cop van on fire, but let's stay 6 feet away from each other while we set this van up. Like,
while the next guy's running out of the Old Navy with a stack of T-shirts,
while this guy grabs a TV.
I saw a picture of a girl in Philadelphia walking out of a jewelry store with a fine bag full of newly acquired wares, and I will tell you this: she was not black. Everybody is out there, and the story is that black people are looting. It is not black people just black people that are looting. It is everyone is out there. Well, every man for himself.
I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of a white woman walking out with a cheesecake.
Sounds about right.
Of course.
Cheesecake is kind of delicious, so it is what it is. But I'm just saying.
Of course. I hope it was one of those big 16 slice guys with all the different flavors because at least that'd be worth it.
So. Let me pose this question to both of you. We have Biden. That's who it's going to be. To make him a strong candidate, who is his running mate that you think will actually turn the tide for him? Because he can't do it alone. He needs somebody.
Well, let's preface this by saying
that is bad that neither one of you could pipe in.
I have 5 instant answers. I was just giving Gary an opportunity to fire.
I'll let you go first, but let me just point out the fact that Joe Biden already went on record and said that it will be a female.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So go ahead, Andy.
Okay. We will start the list with Stacey Abrams. 1. Atlanta, Georgia, a state she almost won that could swing the election. There's 1. She checks 2 boxes. She's an African American and she's a woman. There's 1. 2. A lot of people in the Bernie wing of the party love Elizabeth Warren. I'm not a huge fan, but she's super smart, and I think she could bring that Bernie people to her. I think she would be an asset. Not that we need to carry Massachusetts, but I think she could be a big help.
Now, wouldn't the argument be, sorry to cut you off, that with the nonsense that went on in November between her and Bernie, it kind of soured a lot of his people on her. Do you think she can still yank them in?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
I do.
That's fine.
I do.
All right. Sorry to sidetrack you. Just had to get that question
in. That's fine. And then if you look further out in the political sphere, I know someone who's got a pretty high profile, is gaining a pretty high profile, is a congresswoman that some people may not know. Her name is Val Demings, Florida, from Orlando. Very well-spoken. She was a former prosecutor. Again, gaining a little bit of national profile. A lot of people on the national scene don't know her like Stacey Abrams, but I think she potentially, again, African-American woman, younger, could invigorate, could, help the Florida vote significantly. I think also let's not sleep on, Kamala Harris. I think she potentially could fit the bill. She's got a hot national profile. California doesn't help, But I think if you want to look at those four right off the shoot, I don't think any of them are bad choices. I think Biden could make a ton of bad choices, but I think as long as he takes a woman, and if it's the right minority woman, I think that that could help him.
Wait, you think Pocahontas is still? No, I'm kidding. Fucking
No.
No. But seriously, I was a Warren supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Despite this issue with her, birth origins of potentially having some Native American, I even appreciated her apology for the bullshit of saying that she had it because she had that in her blood, because it means something. My family legitimately has Native American blood in it. You can attest to this.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Her apology was enough for me. It was contrite enough that I could move forward from it. I still know what she said, but I can let it go. I think that she's still a good option, but I didn't like how her and Bernie handled that shit that went on in November. It kind of soured me on her. Stacey Abrams is okay. I like her enough, but she's not exciting to me. And in fact, none of the people that you mentioned are really exciting to me.
I can certainly understand that.
So that's my concern. Gary, where are you at?
I mean, I'll preface this by saying that I don't think there's anybody that can help Biden except Trump. And I think at this point, Trump is doing a pretty good job of doing that. But I think, Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris. I don't think Elizabeth Warren, because I think my impression is that a bunch of people soured on her with the Bernie thing. And I wasn't a big fan of hers, but I didn't have an issue with her, but I did after that because I just thought it was cheap. But, there's been a lot of people pushing for Biden to bring in somebody, not just female, but a person of color also. And I don't know how much it's really going to affect things.
I think it's going to be like a razor thin election, and I think a half a point or a point of minority vote help could swing this thing.
Well, I think honestly, with the way things are going right now, I think Biden is going to get minority vote no matter what, simply because look at what Trump is doing every freaking day.
But then that bespeaks the question, will they actually come out? Because that was the problem.
If what's going on right now hasn't scared the shit out of you already, then nothing's going to scare the shit out of you.
Now, argument be made, if we're still stuck under quarantine and we're not allowed to go to the voter rolls, and then you have to do a mail-in vote, regardless of whether people complain that it's rife with potential issues, I don't think that the minority vote will appear as well as it would in an in-person vote.
Well, I think minority voters they want to be voted in person because they think it removes the idea they're going to get disenfranchised again, that they are actually there doing it. I think no population has been more beaten down by this president than the minorities. I mean, you saw Trump on TV today, and he's like, the blacks love MAGA. I'm like, what the fuck?
Are you talking about? What are you talking about, bro?
Are you trying to shave the 7% that you got? I don't even know who the fuck those people are, but it's like, why are you going to the polls and not voting in your best interest?
Yeah, but you know what the key is here too? Joe needs, between now and November, Joe needs to not say anything else that's fucking stupid.
Yep.
Like if like you ain't black. Like
that was such.
Fuck.
I don't care if he was joking or not. That's not a joke you make.
I honestly think that Joe Biden is his own biggest enemy, and I don't think he was a good choice. I think he's a terrible choice, and he might be even worse than Hillary because, like I said, at least Hillary could form a complete sentence. But
the problem is that Joe didn't run as soon as his vice presidency term was up, and they allowed Clinton to try to run instead. If Joe Biden had gotten in right on the coattails of being Obama's vice president, he's high on the list. Anybody that was already on board, he would have had only a short amount of time to not stick his foot in his fucking mouth, and he would have had Obama's backing
coalition
right then and there. He could have hand-walked him right down the fucking road, but he didn't want to do it because of his personal issues outside of the work that would need to be done to be president. And I understand why he didn't do it, but that was his chance.
That was his window. You're right.
That was his window. And now his window is closed, and here we are.
And we need some looter to throw a brick through it to break it back open.
I am angry because, like I said, I hate the two-party system. I would have loved to see an independent come in and make a real run of this thing because I think, and I said it last time, but I think even more so this time, that if you had a real strong independent candidate, they might have a chance of making a dent in this thing. And people would blame them for this and that, but like, I really think that we need an independent to get a real strong showing one of these fucking elections. And I wish it would have happened last time because this two-party system is just so shot. And I'm pissed at like I said, you look at these two guys and it's like, this is the best we got.
No,
that was my first question.
You couldn't pick anybody else.
380 million of us.
Yeah, you couldn't pick anybody else.
We got.
Like Joe at the pizza place down the block, it speaks better than this guy.
Like, we have the only thing the Democrats and the Republicans can agree on 100% is what they like about the two-party system and why it will never go away is because at least one of the two of them is going to win, and they know that.
Right.
But if they can agree on that, then there's never going to be the change to the electoral college and
right. But that's all part of the problem. That's part of the problem because in the end, listen, we're talking about minority vote. Trump right now is just burying himself further and further with them. So you got two choices at this point. We'll leave out that small percentage that's going to vote for Trump anyway, because who knows what the fuck is wrong with them. But
too many things to point out.
Yeah, I mean, that's you could keep a psychologist real busy with somebody like that. But you've got people that are going to either vote for Biden or Biden's going to piss them off and they're just not going to vote. And that's really, sadly, that's where your swing is right now. Like it's a matter of like who is actually going to bother to vote at this point, because Trump, and it's crazy because no matter Trump does so much shit, and yet these people still die hard for him, and I just don't get it.
Teflon Don, he's the real Teflon Don.
And I think a lot of it is cultural because, Len, as you and I have discussed many, many times, I think there's just a war on common sense in this country that's gone on for years.
Stupid people are breeding.
There's a lot of scared, undereducated white people who are afraid of minorities and the graying and browning of our country as the demographics shift. It scares them. It shouldn't, but it does. And this is where we are. We got one guy who picked up on this racial anxiety, and it's codified this like 39 or 40% of people that are going to ride or die with this racist bastard, and it's up to everybody else to buck the trend.
See, but this is what I'm talking about, because you have so many people now, and I've talked to my kids about this and tried to explain it to them, because it happens in grade school, it happens in high school, it happens with adults now too. It's just like, it's cool to be stupid. Mm-hmm. It's cool to be ignorant. It's cool to be like, I mean, now with Trump, we've just gone straight into racist and all this other shit. But it's just the idea of like, it's cool to just not be smart. And it goes back, Len, to idiocracy. It's like, we've gotten to the point where that's cool. And it's like, what the fuck? And the COVID thing is like the war on science. Like, you see Fauci go out there and say all these things, and then Trump's like, yeah, nah, fuck all that. And it's just like a war on intelligence that's going on in this country. It's just
going to go away.
And yeah,
you'll see one day it's just gone.
But
we want to talk about the grade of intelligence. Chris Rock said this 15 or 20 years ago. Can you quote the bit, Len?
Oh, yeah, of course. I don't know. Counties rise, biatch.
Yes. We nothing makes us happier than just not knowing and just being willfully ignorant and falling through the day.
See, I think it's deeper than that, and I've talked about this before. Because I've worked certain type of jobs, and it's just like going back 20 years at this point, we've been breeding robots. It's like, we want these people, like, you get these people working customer service, and it's like they're reading off a script. And you get these people working behind the counter at certain retail stores, and it's like they're reading off a script. There's no brain work involved.
They can't even count their own change anymore. Every machine spits out exactly the right amount of change. You say, all right, you tell me, all right, it's $11.40, and I hand you $21.40. And you look at me like I don't like. Oh, yeah. Like my head is sideways.
No, you do it. What you do is you do it after they already punched the 20 in. Like, you go to your Wawa, and the total comes to like 11.05, and they type in like you're gonna give them a 20, and they try to give them a nickel, and they're like,
I can't do it.
Like, no, you can't. You can't do that. You'll be there for another 20 minutes.
It's like, oh my God. It's like.
You'll be there for another 20 minutes while they try to figure it out. But that's what I'm talking about, because it's just escalated from that. It's like, you got that math stuff. You got all these people that they want you to just read off a script. They like, everything is just, it's like we've been breeding robots for the past 20, 30 years. So this is all just an extension of that, because here we are giving everybody a script. We want you to upsell this and upsell that, and you know, talk to them this way, and like, now they don't fucking
follow the system.
Yeah, now they don't think, and it's like, for people like us who are intelligent and we do think, then we got to deal with these people, and we just want to bang our head against the fucking wall. That's what I deal with all the time. And like I said, it goes on with all different age ranges and this and that. Like, I've met older people who are like that. I've met younger people who are like that. My kids are in school with people like that. And it's just like, how the fuck did we get here?
I'll say it. I hate people.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Always have.
I can't barely go out. I can't barely go out the house. I mean, COVID's good for me because I don't got to leave the house much, but I can't barely go out the house without getting aggravated with somebody.
I mean, yeah. I don't even. I have nothing more to add to that.
Well, but we're all in the same boat. But that's because we're intelligent people, and I know for me, and it's probably the same for you guys. It's like, I can't dumb myself down. Like, no, I talk to these people, and it's like they're just looking at you with their fucking jaw hanging down, like, what?
Their eyes just sober, and you're like not talking to them anymore.
But this is what I'm talking about. It's fucking idiocracy. because that's what we've evolved into, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying because he made that movie, and like little did he know that like he was predicting the future. And
it's so scary how spot on it is.
Yeah.
And he really said it. It's set a long time in the future, but literally it's 10, 12 years since he put that movie out. It was 2007.
Yeah.
So
and it's crazy because I've talked to people about that movie that have never seen that movie. Because let's face it, I don't know how much you guys know about the history of that movie, but you know that movie basically got buried.
Oh yeah, I know about it. I mean, I only found out about it because I just kind of follow the guy in general, and I saw the movie show up in a bin in 2008, and I'm like, what the fuck movie is this? I didn't even know he made a movie. Let me buy this movie. It looks, all right, I like Luke Wilson. I like, what's his name? Maya Rudolph. I was like, I like both of these two people, and the premise on the back of the box is hilarious. All right, let me watch this. And I started watching it, and it instantly made me sad while I was laughing. And I was just like, oh no, he's right. I didn't realize how right he was.
I stumbled on it on cable. I happened to be flipping channels one day when on a weekend or something, and then it was just starting, and I was like, what the hell is this? Mike Judge? I never saw this before. And I watched it, and I just sat there mesmerized.
Yep. I did the same thing. I didn't really know much about it, and I could see it was on one of the pay channels, and I kept seeing it, but I kept seeing it come on in the middle, and I'm like, well, I want to catch this from the beginning. And then finally I watched it, and I was like, all right, that was a mind fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was working in Princeton at the time that this ended up in that bin. I was working for a financial research firm. And on my lunches, I would walk to the record exchange occasionally. So I walked down to the record exchange, and it was in the bin for $3. And I see all the information about it on the back, and I'm like, it's $3, whatever, I'll buy it. And I watched it at work instead of working because for whatever reason, I had my own office and I had headphones, and if somebody opened the door, my monitor was facing away from the door. So my door was shut, and I spent the afternoon either listening to music or watching movies and answering phones, doing whatever it is I was supposed to do. It's not that I wasn't doing any work, but it was playing. And I'm watching this movie, and at some point I was no longer working because I was legitimately scared watching the movie, but also highly entertained. So immediately from that point, I've referenced that movie 1,000 billion times because you could see it coming. But I just didn't recognize that it was coming this soon.
And it's funny because Mike Judge is good like that because I must reference Office Space like 100 times a day when I'm at work.
PC load letter? What the fuck does that mean? So
yeah, I mean, luckily I work with people who have seen it.
Right.
Like when I was working in Brooklyn, there was one younger guy that had never seen it, and I was like, "You got to go see this."
You got to go. Just take the afternoon off, go home, and watch this movie.
And I told him, I'm like, "You're not going to get half of my references unless you go watch this movie." And he was just like, "Okay." And then he went and watched it, and not only did he love it, he's like, "Dude, now I get all the stupid shit you say all day."
Yeah.
And I'm like, my stapler. He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about with the stapler?" I'm like, "Let's just watch the damn movie."
So to wrap this up, looking forward, let's just give it a 3-month window because I'm not trying to take us all the way up to the election. What horrible shit do you see coming in the next 3 months? Just give me your worst case scenario.
My hope is that aliens come down and say, "Take me to your leader," and then they look at that orange asshole. He says something stupid, and they zap him, and then they leave. And then they zap Pence too. Just
if you want my aspirational hope and change, is that just I wake up one morning and that motherfucker dropped dead from a cheeseburger. That's the only thing that's gonna save us. I'm serious.
I mean, I don't even know at this point, seriously, because this dude is sitting here playing with fire between not wearing a mask ever and then doing this hydroxy, whatever the fuck. And
hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
Well, his positive negative test.
Yeah, his positively negative test. But like
that motherfucker couldn't spell hydroxychloroquine, let alone. He's such a fucking lie. I mean, that's one of his zillion lies a fucking day. He never took that shit. He's a fucking germaphobe. He's terrified. He wouldn't have fucking taken that shit.
Let me pose this to you. He thinks he's taking it, but they're giving him a placebo.
That's entirely possible.
They're giving him sugar water like a butterfly.
I mean, I could totally see that happening. Honestly, I mean, there's so much crazy shit that has gone on this year. I really have no idea what could be next.
Buckle up. That's all I can say. Buckle up.
So I mean, my prediction. Corona Spike 2 and 3.
It's coming. See that. Yep.
2 and 3 in the same year?
Spike 2 was already coming. You're going to see Spike 2 because of these fucking rallies.
That's a side factor of these rallies, but the real side too. So it's like watching Back to the Future. You have 1985, 1985A, and then 1985B. You got all three of them.
Yeah.
And we're going to be
into myself and my other self. Now,
exactly. You're going to have all three.
The problem, and I think what's really going to, I think Wave 2 is going to be convoluted, but Wave 3 is going to be scary as fuck because for two reasons, and I'm not trying to lengthen this out anymore and get further out into the ether, but there are two things that are coming that are going to compound it. One, we have our regular influenza season, which is already projected to be bad. And from what I've read ancillarily, just because I'm a nerd and I like this shit, that they don't have a hell of a lot of confidence in this year's round of the flu vaccine. So I think the regular flu vaccine this year is it's kind of been met with mixed results. So between that, like regular influenza, whatever round of COVID we're on, you're going to have a lot of sick people. We're probably going to come out of quarantine, but we may end up back into it again.
Yep.
I don't know.
Right.
It's going to be a bad fall.
My office is closed all the way till August. Excuse me, August 8th. Right now.
Wow.
And they also stated in their information to us that it may just be indefinite, but for now, at least August. Don't plan to come back until after August 8th. And we're not going back until sometime next year, in my opinion. I'm going to be at this home office in my basement or working from Landmine Studios for what's going to turn out to be an entire year. I'm not going to have seen my desk.
We could sit here for another 2 hours and talk about how this whole business has reshaped what it means to work and work from home.
Yep.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole different story. Yep. And I don't even want to dig into that right now.
Well,
I'm just saying.
The other thing that I'll say,
we'll be on 2 and 3 soon.
The other thing that I'll say is, like what I was talking about before with the war on common sense and the war on science and stuff like that. I don't want to see anybody get sick, and I don't want to see anybody in danger. But I'm really hoping that there is a second wave, because if there's not, then everybody's going to walk around waving their hands around like, oh, they were full of shit. See, they were wrong. Fuck that. I'm not going to quarantine anymore. And it's just going to end up justifying all kinds of stupid behavior.
Yep.
Because people are just going to be like, yeah, the scientists were wrong. And nobody's ever going to listen to science again, because they're just going to be like, well, fuck that.
Yep.
They made me stay in my house all this time for what? They weren't even right. And sadly,
those people didn't think
where we're headed.
Those people don't think it's right anyway.
This is just one. This is just COVID-19. In 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more years, there'll be another one. As we are in a global society where people move around, and there will be another pandemic, and we will play this all out again.
Hopefully, we'll have someone in charge. We'll have an actual adult in the room.
Yep, maybe.
Yeah. It'd be nice if we had an adult minding, the whole thing.
I mean, let's be clear that Obama faced at least one potential pandemic and did a fairly good job of containing the contagion and spreading the spread far enough out that it was never a serious concern because he followed the playbook.
Despite what these guys are trying to have you believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, a lot of us are adults. Please tell me the truth. I don't care how bad it is. Give me the facts.
Yep.
I can handle it. Some people can't, but I can. I'd rather know. Am I going to die? Tell me, please. Am I in danger? I want to know. I don't want to be willfully ignorant and then just drop dead tomorrow. I may anyway, but I mean, who the hell knows?
Yeah, no day is guaranteed. It is what it is. But I would much rather know what the deal is. And again, we got to face the facts that most of the people that are dropping dead from corona are people who are in compromised situations, meaning monetarily, health care, accessibility, lifestyle, etc. The people who typically succumb to this have pre-existing issues. Not saying all of them, but many of them. And part of that comes down to the fact that they just don't have access to care before they've even gotten sick. Right.
Well, that was a parallel that Cuomo was pointing out. And it's true because, they actually broke down in the city they broke it down by zip code, and my job, which is in the hood, my job was at the top of the list. Like 51% of the people tested were positive. And it's because it's the hood, they're poor, they don't have access to healthcare, and Cuomo was pointing this out. It's like the same kind of thing like what we're talking about with all the protests that are going on and things like that, and just the idea of how black people are treated in America. It's all part of this thing because it's like, here we are where they're not getting proper health care. They're getting sick more. And it just points to just all of these underlying issues that are going on.
And I didn't even
health conditions, close quartered living.
Yep.
Lack of health care, lack of resources. It just, like I said, it again, the perfect storm.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it just exposes all that stuff. And then, stuff like this incident in Minneapolis just exposes it even more.
Yep.
And it's just, all the signs all point to the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
So I just, my mind is spinning from the last 10 weeks of things that I've just had to deal with that I never thought I would have to deal with, and then add on the immensity of the last week, and I'm just blown away that this is where we're at.
It's just crazy, and it's just like I said, and like we've been saying, it's like what is next? Like I don't even fucking know. Like it's just so crazy. Because I don't know when I'm going back to my office, because I deal with the public every day. So they're not in a rush to have us go back. They might reassign me to do something else. I don't know. But, what can you do? You know, they've had me working from home because there's, you know, it's how it is. But like, I'm just doing random projects because my work deals with the public.
Yeah, my company is dealing with the fact that the way that we deliver the product that we deliver, absolutely 100% unequivocally changed due to the closure of everything.
Right.
Without that, we can't do what we do in the same manner. A number of monetary leads were absolutely quelled and may or may not exist come September, depending on how these numbers continue to spike or not spike. And, you know, I'm just hoping to have a job at the end of the rainbow, and I'm hoping I don't have an empty pot. But secondarily, as we were talking about, I have a feeling that they're going to close our office because we're a satellite office. We're not even a regular, like the main location. The main location is in New York City. Right. So, you know, they've got 1,000 people who work in New York City, and then they've got a number of satellite offices throughout the U.S., and ours is the only one that does what we do, but we've already proven that we can do it from home. So they're going to go, do you really need such a big office? We're probably going to shut this office down and get a much smaller location with, you know, open seating for 20 in case you need a meeting, and then otherwise keep your ass at home.
Yeah, I think a lot of that type of stuff is going to change because I hear that about schools too, that schools have been doing all this home stuff, and some of them are like, well, how much of this can we just do and not have to worry about dealing with actual school buildings and stuff?
And then you don't have to worry about kids getting sick going to school with each other, etc. But then that builds human silos with no real true interaction with people of their own peers. It's a fucking terrible plan.
Well, the other part of that problem, by the way, is that I know a lot of people dealing with kids, you know, with the whole homeschool thing, and they're bugging out just because
they can't work.
Just
you can't
generally
work.
Difficult.
Yep.
Well, that, but also the kids are suffering too because there's a lack of structure.
Yep.
You know, when you have to go to a building and you have to go to this room at this time and this room at this time, it's one thing. But when you have the distractions of your home life all around you, it makes it a lot more difficult to get these kids to focus and things like that. And it's just creating a lot of those type of issues for a lot of parents, and it sucks.
Well, my kids are little. They need stimulation. They need constant attention. You can't work from home. And it's impossible. Like and also too is that, you know, what happens, you know, to like you know, most schools only run to like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So now what? Where are the kids going to go between 2:30 and when parents come home if they do go back to a job? So it's like there's a whole myriad of problems.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with it all around, and it's just there's no solutions yet. I mean, we may eventually end up back to somewhat normal, if you want to call it that, but nobody really knows.
That may be the path of least resistance.
I think, honestly, we're not going to have a lot of those answers anytime soon, and I definitely don't think we're going to have them under the Orange King.
The Orange King.
Because he's not going to help anybody get anything done. I think he's so wrapped up with just trying to get himself over that he's not going to be helpful in any way, shape, or form with anything that's going on.
He hasn't been yet, so.
No. And if he somehow gets reelected, then we are all very
done.
Seriously fucked.
F-U-C-T fucked.
Yeah.
So, with that, I'd like to thank Andy for showing up. Andy, would you like to tell us any of the things that you're doing currently that you want to promote for yourself?
Nah, I don't do any promotion. I don't do anything that's I don't do anything in the public space.
What about your radio show? You want to tell us about your show?
Yeah, I do this little do this little radio thing on 91.3 WTSR. We are off the air right now because we are trying to figure out how to broadcast remotely. That's my next call that I have to make with my co-host to figure out how we can via Zoom and via another software to get us to meet up with the stream so we can broadcast. Normally I would be on the air on Thursdays from 9 to midnight on WTSR 91.3. WTSR.org is our website. So there's my plug time.
And I am Len from Landmine Studios. I do a lot of work with a number of sources, specifically Hate 56, out in the web and out in the world. And I appreciate you guys tuning in with my co-host, Gary.
I am Gary Muttley from the band Billy Club Sandwich. And also, if you want to check us out, hopefully by the time we have this up, we'll have everything up and running. We should have the Upgrade podcast on Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, possibly YouTube. And hopefully we will have the Upgrade podcast.net up and running. And if we have to change that, we'll just edit it in. But I think we'll have that taken care of this week. So you can find us on any of those, and we will try to start, as things get more together, we'll start being more interactive, and we'll, try to do some stuff with you guys asking us questions, things like that, and go from there.
And we're definitely going to have Andy back on the show.
I will come back anytime. Let me thank you guys for the opportunity. Like I said, on my show is Destiny's Bastard Children, and we do pretty much the same thing. We talk media, we talk politics, we talk, food, so we just basically talk. We play some new music, but we basically just fuck around for, 3 hours without the cursing. So, because we're actually on the radio. So, but like I said, it's been a pleasure, Gary. It's been a pleasure to put a name to the face. Like I said, I will gladly come back anytime.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you. All right, we'll see you guys soon.